Once again, it is an honor, privilege, and a pleasure to do this once more. This is Counsel Culture. I am Nick Cannon, and today I am joined by someone truly special, truly the highest class of civilization, as I say. We're definitely privileged to be in her presence. Just to name off a few things, she's a executive producer, a New York Times #1 best-selling author 6 times, and counting probably. She has authored, almost 17 books in 23 different languages with over 10 million copies sold collectively, and award-winning so many times over. But more importantly, someone who truly cares and loves people, loves our culture. The one and only world-renowned Reverend Dr. Iyanla Vanzant. It is such a pleasure.
It is my honor. But you forgot great-grandma, grandma, and mama.
I heard that.
That's the big thing.
Those
right
three
there.
things right there. A true matriarch.
Yes, that's it.
I think the world has been waiting for you and I to sit down and converse.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
But I've been a fan for quite some time, obviously, from your numerous and various appearances and shows and speeches and lectures.
Can I tell you
books.
that just like freaks me out?
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because, when I'm not being wonderful and marvelous, I'm home watching TV. I'm watching Wild 'N Out and Drumline and looking. I'm like, oh, this Nick Cannon.
I appreciate it. But that makes me feel weird too. But no, I think we have probably a lot of things in common. Specifically, our love and care for our people.
Yes.
We probably go about it in different ways. You have approached it from an academic and a clinical standpoint, where I feel like I utilize platforms like this really to create safe spaces for men, specifically with counsel culture. It's no longer cancel culture.
No.
We've got to stop canceling. We got to start counseling.
Yeah.
We got to start taking accountability. We have to start having brave spaces and safe places to be vulnerable, to discuss. And as I always say, we're here so we can feel together, we can reveal together, so we can heal together.
Yeah.
And you have even an addendum to that.
I say feel, deal, heal.
I heard that.
So once you feel it, you've got to deal with it.
Yeah.
And so that you can eliminate it from the deepest root and cause. So you can feel it, you deal with it, and then you can heal. Because if you don't deal, you can't heal.
Yeah. I love it. Well, we got a lot to deal with today. I'm on your couch, Doc. I'm gonna create some conversation. Like I said, as we talked previous to this, there's no holds barred. We could talk about anything. There's nothing off limits. And I'm in a space of receiving, in a space of healing. But there's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot going on in my world. But I just think, as a man, I got questions, and there's so much going on. I think a great place to start, in our first session today would be the importance of mental health.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically for Black men. It's not, it's it's starting to become something of the norm. But it's almost like it's a trend or it's a phase. It's good to talk about it.
Yeah.
But to actually do it, there's quite a few things that are prohibiting us from doing it in our community.
Yeah.
First of all, it's just the accessibility. Men in therapy generally, but specifically Black men in therapy, first thing we're going to say is we don't have the time for that. Second thing we're going to say is even if we did have time for it, how are we going to figure it out? And then, like you said, the last thing is we don't have the money for that. Right. And I personally was probably introduced to the idea of therapy was first in the church.
Really?
Yeah, and that, I mean, you know, I don't even know. Again, it was probably more called counseling
Right.
in ministry.
That's right.
You know, you got couples counseling, you know, behavioral counseling for someone like myself. um, but even in that sense where you get time with an elder at the church, a pastor, just even that time, just to be able to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I probably got more introduced when I started doing a lot of work in the facilities of incarceration and different prisons, specifically even working with juveniles. I would go in with different psychologists and we would create these group sessions, group therapy and group counseling. And I found I was supposed to be there as somewhat of a mentor, but I found myself doing quite a bit of work, and it was helpful for me.
Yeah.
And then from there, you know, my various relationships.
No clue what you're talking about.
I have definitely sat down with many different therapists and counseling in that form. And as of now, you know, I'm probably in counseling 4 times a week. At least.
Really?
Yeah, you know, at least twice individually. Sometimes, you know, it all depends. Some in a holistic fashion. I definitely make it you know, even in my travel, my work and everything, I have a specific doctor that I do see on Tuesdays and Fridays in the morning, right after.
And what's your intention?
Well, initially with that, you know, being someone who also is, you know, studying to get my degree in this space, once I left Howard University in 2020, my goal was to, you know, get my master's in psychology. So I wanted, part of the work was to make sure you know, actually spend time in therapy.
Right.
But, you know, it's been some years now, and I yearn for it. I desire it. I first went in like, oh yeah, I'm just doing this to pick your brain and understand the process. And,
Yeah.
you know, I'm good. And then really spending that time. I personally, for me, those hours every week, I call it waste management. It's where I get to just go and let it all out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not even to necessarily make sense of everything.
Yeah.
Because that's never, you know.
Everything don't have to make sense.
Yeah, but if just to verbalize, to have the opportunity to ponder and sit, and sometimes cry, sometimes just breathe, you know, but there's a lot that, you know, I always call it my spiritual bandwidth. I can only take so much before I have to get it all out.
And it keeps you from being alone in your head without adult supervision.
Right.
Because that could be a dangerous place to be.
Right.
I mean, just for you, for all of us. And to be able to get an objective third party. One of the two things I want to say, and of course, as a woman of color, a woman of African descent, of course, my community, Black people, but I'm also brown and red. Right in my face. I don't have to do DNA 23andMe. My grandmother was born on the reservation.
Oh, wow.
And so I have to say Black, brown, and red. I think Black men are now standing up a little more when it comes to mental health and personal care than the brown men, Latin men, or the red men who are just really silent.
Right.
But I do encourage, support, applaud you, because if nothing else, having another person to talk to dump your brain out with, keeps you accountable to yourself and to others. Because a man who is not accountable to himself is a danger to him, is not accountable to anyone.
Right.
He's a danger to himself and everybody else.
Right.
And when you're alone in your head without adult supervision, making up stuff, and you don't have anybody to bounce that off of, where's your accountability?
Right.
Because when you up there, you really think you got it going on, don't you?
Facts. True. That, I mean, you touch on so many different things, because in something that you said earlier, I was just like, we got to get these cameras rolling, because you in here dropping the gems. But you were just talking about specifically, you know, Black men, because I was talking about, you know, not what we deal with, but from the aspect of being the heads of our household, being the ones that have to usually take the weight on their shoulders,
Or not.
and then when that's taken away from you.
Yeah.
So when brothers are losing jobs, when brothers feel or been emasculated, when brothers are getting older and not being able to handle or compete in society like they once were when they were in their prime. At some point, and we'll dive into this in a later session. It's like, you're like, what is my purpose? Why am I here?
Yeah.
And therefore that starts to mess with you. And if you can't talk to somebody about that. We always talk, we're so goal oriented, we're so driven, we're so, we gotta manifest this. But when the manifestation isn't coming in the timing that you want it, when the goal isn't, you're not hitting the mark exactly how you want it, how do you deal with that? Who do you talk to when you missed all the shots? Who do you talk to when you lost your job? Who do you confide in when the woman that you love no longer loves you and leaves you for someone else? Those are the things where we embody and bottle all of that stuff up until sometimes it's too late, and we don't know, we had nowhere to turn.
I think one of the greatest crimes, there are many, but one of the greatest crimes perpetuated against black men specifically is the level to which their humanity and their hearts have been devalued, diminished, and dehumanized, and that they have become doing machines. The greatest value a black man has, in many instances, is what he can do for somebody. Right. And how he can do it, and how much he can do it, and how much he earns doing it. I mean, I hear it and see it among young people in the relationships. You're going to get my nails done, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do that. Right. They've been demeaned and devalued and dehearted to the point where they value themselves based on what they can do. Fix it, get it, make it happen. And no place have I seen in our world does anybody tell black men how to be. How to be with themselves, how to be true to themselves, how to be with their feelings, how to be with their heart, and it's criminal. So what happens is then they begin to do the things that are expected of them, and that's how they're evaluated. And then if they can't do that anymore, whether it's the job or pay the mortgage or whatever, then they're just cast off like socks in the corner.
Right. Right.
And it happens to black women also, but usually because of the children in our care, we're given a little more leeway. But the way it's done for black men, and as I shared with you, one of the things my teacher taught me was one of the greatest kryptonites for a man in general, black men specifically, is the feeling, the belief, the treatment that he is somehow inadequate. And when you devalue a man, he's going to feel inadequate. When you dehumanize him, when you deheart him, so then where does he go with that?
Right.
He's inadequate, and he doesn't serve a purpose because he can't do what you need him to do to make you feel better about yourself.
What's the purpose? What's the point?
What's the point? And that's why we have these incredible rises in suicide. Yeah. I personally think it's why we have this, and I don't know the figures, I don't know what they are now, but the increase between, I think it was 2017 and 2021, a 30-something% increase in the number of black men with prostate cancer, starting early. And why? Because their manhood is under attack.
Right.
And their psyche is not nourishing and nurturing them, and their masculinity. Because where in the world do we see them lifted, honored? I don't want to say respected. And here's what I hear in the back of my mind. So let me just go ahead and deal with it. black women saying, well, look what they do, and look how they are, and look what they do, and we unwittingly participate in the emasculation, the dehumanization, the devaluation, and the disheartening of black men because they didn't do it the way we wanted them to do it. Mothers, wives, girlfriends, sisters.
That's such a complex conversation, and we didn't even get into my own personal life. Being that I love the matriarchs of my family. My grandmother, my great grandmother, is currently 104.
Wow.
Living in Kannapolis, North Carolina.
Oh my God, Kannapolis. I know Kannapolis.
Yeah, I think that's where the name Cannon comes from. Everybody in that town, last name is Cannon.
Really?
Textile, going all the way back to the cotton fields.
Wow.
And it's such a strong and vibrant black woman. Probably the strongest person, like my superhero. Corrine Cannon, who then gave, birth to my grandfather, who married my grandmother. That's such a powerful woman, who then gave birth to my father, who then, teenagers, my mother and my father met each other and had me. And in that, those are my examples of relationships.
Yeah.
I watch, like I said, my great-grandmother be a matriarch. I watch my grandmother be a matriarch who helped raise me and the teenagers who had me. And then my mother being, a young mother, so resilient and brilliantly trying to figure it out, from putting herself through night school to several jobs at a time, being a teenager with a young baby, and then, her various personal relationships, because my parents never really were in a relationship. My father went back to North Carolina to, get his education, stay out of trouble, started his new family, while I kind of bounced around amongst the three. So even in that, when time for me to get into my relationships and my love life, I saw various things. So I was willing and ready to I'm open for whoever loves me.
Okay.
you know? And I never really understood the importance that I do now, because I'm somebody who's had many relationships, but there is a strength in the black relationship.
Yes.
But now, because I have been through various relationships, I get a lot of flack and ridicule for being a successful black man who's currently not in a monogamous relationship with a black woman, and what that example is for not only my own children, but even, people who look up to me, or they're trying to lead by example, because, even as a lot, I get quite often, I see it in the comments of like, you can't be pro-black in the streets and white in the sheets, or the things that they say in the settings of like, how can you be so for the culture, as a black man, but we don't see you, marrying a black woman currently, and I come up with my various excuses, where I say, I was married to Mariah Carey, that is a black woman, or even, one of my baby mamas is dark skinned, or all of these things that I say.
Why? Why do you feel you need to respond?
That's my question. I mean, in trying to dig deep into my psychosis of, am I, is there, as someone who's, attempting to lead by example, someone who's attempting to, even as you put it, I understand the power and the importance of a black woman. And even the definition of what that is. But as, as someone who is prominent in a figure in the culture that people do
If
value.
you were poor, would it be okay? Or would they care?
They wouldn't care.
Okay.
But I'm not. If I consider myself a king, they want to see who the queen is.
Yeah.
If I'm the pastor, they looking at the first lady.
I get that.
So
Why? Did you volunteer for that, or were you voted into that place?
Yeah, no. I mean, but again, we have responsibility, and I want to get into this, in a later session too. But as public figures, specifically public figures with responsibilities, you know what I mean? If I was just your typical rapper or comedian or entertainer, that I even use terms like I ain't no role model, I'm a real model. I get but I do value, my voice and do want it to be a voice for change and inspiration. So, I got to check myself in every component, and, I think it's about equanimity. It's about the things where if I'm pouring into the community, into the culture, in one aspect, I'm not perfect, but I also do understand like some of these things are up for conversation, and I'm willing to be accountable. I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to grow. So I even, put all of that out there to say, even in a session and even in dealing with my mental health, those are things that go through my mind. And everything from the ideas of, what is the definition of a strong relationship? What is the definition of, being a good father? What is the definition of, being someone who's prominent in the culture and being, so-called responsible? Those are the things that go through my mind at night. It is.
I mean, you've got so much in there. I don't even know. I don't even.
That's
know.
why we here, Doc.
Well, first of all, let me just say, I think you told me you're a Xer or Zer or.
Yeah, I'm a Gen X.
You were born
I'm
in
before
80.
the millennials.
Okay.
I was born in the 80s.
Okay. And you're also living in the Aquarian age, which is about oneness.
Yes.
And a lot of, they sued him and took his money and everything, but Robin Thicke sang Blurred Lines. The lines are becoming more and more blurred.
They are.
In terms of what these systems and structures and lines and boxes that we were in. We went from LBGT to LBGTQ to LIA. I mean, the
Plus.
lines are becoming more and more blurred. Right. And in terms of interracial, intercultural partnerships, relationships, marriages, it's a sign of the times. It's what is going on now. I mean, I don't want to tell you how old I am, but I've got bras that I bought in 1980, the same year you were born. So, but two women together in my time,
right?
Okay, stone them.
right.
Men in heels,
right?
Stone them.
Right.
Okay, so part of it for you to consider is that a lot of those lines are blurred, and you as a black man dating a woman of another race or culture are demonstrating that you can love who you love and still take care of your people. Why isn't that a consideration?
Right.
That you can be who you are personally and you do the strength. Maybe that's not your sole contract to marry a black woman, but to take care of the black community and to do it in a way where you are out in the world and people see you and you handle yourself and you speak your truth and you state your intention and you love Becky. I don't know how to say it.
No,
it's
that's
okay.
Real. That's
I mean,
real.
because
and
the lines,
that's been happening since the 60s.
Well, but for a long time, I don't know if I'll say this, I'll probably get in trouble. I might have to have you help me later because I'm saying things and they'll be all over the place.
Bring you back
for a long
time,
you talk about Mariah's black. For a long time, she was too light. They didn't like her.
Yeah.
She don't look like. You know what? Humans are crazy as hell. Do you know that? We are crazy as hell, just like me. I never know what's going to set me off.
Right.
So we have to, and I want to encourage us, invite us in this day and age to stop, to really reconsider the kind of chains that we place on each other. We don't call it enslavement. Your opinion of me is a chain around my neck. Where's the free will? Where's the choice?
Right.
Judgment. There are a lot of men of color out there with means who ain't doing nothing. Who spend their money on the pole.
Right.
Okay, and they sleep with black women.
Right.
And ain't doing nothing for the hundreds of thousands of young black boys that can't read. Or the children, the hundreds of thousands of black children with food insecurity right here in America. And they sleeping with everything black and that they want to and ain't doing nothing. So let's have a big conversation.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's for us to question. I don't think it's, not anymore.
Right.
That's Piscean era stuff.
Yeah.
That's, now the lines are blurred.
Well, I think there was just some people that came before us that gave us the ability. I mean, like I came from under the schooling and, you know, may you rest in peace, but I got a chance to have many conversations with, you know, Harry Belafonte.
Me too.
You know. And
that was my ex-husband's mentor,
yeah.
Harry Belafonte.
Yeah.
I grew up with people like G2 Iusi, who most people don't even know who that is.
Right.
Okay? I was a 60s revolutionary baby, Black Panther, free lunch program.
Right.
All of that. And bread costs more today than it did back then. How come that can change and I can't?
I heard that. But that's what I was saying. Like everybody from, you know, Mr. B to Sidney Poitier to so many individuals that did so much for our culture that I don't even get, you know, discussed now. When you know, we talk about...
But that's our job. We have to discuss them.
Right.
Can I tell you a funny joke?
Yes.
Okay. So, when was it? A couple of years ago when they had the anniversary of Roots. Now, I grew up, you know, I saw it live, you know, Roots. But, so I, being the cultural grandmother that I am, gather all my grandchildren, the teens, the tweens, and everything, pop some popcorn, we gonna watch Roots. Okay? And I'm gonna explain every little part, you know, with Kunta and everything. Well, one of my grandsons, oh God, he says to me, why are they on that boat? I said, what do you mean, why are they on the boat? He said, why are they on that boat?
Right.
I said, well, they're being captured from Africa and they're being enslaved. He said, well, why aren't they in the plane? I said, don't tell nobody your last name is Vanzant. But it also speaks to the conversations that we need to have with our young people.
True.
You know, I mean, I saved every movie. I've got Coolie High, I've got Roots, I've got all of these things on DVD because I want them to see that.
Right.
Boys in the Hood, you know, all of not the Friday movies, they say, but whatever it is, I've got them and I want them to see them. Anytime, Jet Magazine, my grandchildren I've never seen an Ebony magazine.
They don't know what a Jet Beauty of the Week
right?
looks like.
And how long a Jet... I got some from 78, because, you know, Jet just recycled itself.
Yeah.
But I want them to see that part of the culture. But that's my job.
Right.
That's your job, that we can talk about it and support them in recognizing and understanding how did we get to the cancel culture?
Right.
What are some of the issues that resulted in that? And how are we going to stand in it and be different in it, particularly Black men?
Right.
You know, I mean, I have friends who've been canceled because times have changed, things have changed, women have changed, requirements have changed, expectations have changed, and nobody told them in.
Yeah, that's why I created it. I've been canceled a few times.
I know.
and in that, it's like, man, I need a safe space to be able to say whatever I want to say. And with someone who can say, you might have went too far on that, or let me explain this, or even just a safe space to be the man that I am. Because even in being the man that I am, he said, no one's told me the new rules.
Right.
No one's told me what I can or can't say until it's too late. And then they're like, oh, you wasn't supposed to say that.
And particularly for black men, again, I will say it, devalued, dehumanized, diminished, demeaned, dismissed, disheartened. Um, why do we go for punishment as opposed to correction? Where is the correction unfolding? Where's that happening?
The true
and
repentance.
who's doing it? Huh?
I said the true repentance.
Right. Because it's one
Atonement.
thing. Atonement, which is what Minister Louis Farrakhan said at the
Beloved.
Million Man March. What is that now? 55 years ago?
Yeah.
He
I
said
don't know
you
if that
must
long,
atone.
But no, that definitely, and I've had many times to sit with the minister, and that really is his message.
Yes.
The accountability, the atonement of the black man, and to understand who we are in an unapologetic manner. And that's why even us sitting here talking about, therapy, and even me personally, the things that, keep me up at night are the responsibilities of a man, and what I'm allowed to do and what I'm no longer allowed to do.
Well, allowed, is that the...
I mean,
don't
in this
think it's
society,
allowed.
In this society,
But
it's
see,
allowed.
we've given people's opinions too much power.
But even when people's opinions can now
Destroy
affect
your career.
Yeah, not just destroy your career, but destroy your household.
Right.
Where now, because of people's opinions, when you walk down the street or when you walk in the door, people are looking at you differently.
How did that happen?
Because you went viral, or not even just a specific, not because I'm not even discussing a public figure. I'm just talking about the things that we can no longer say, the things that we can no longer do, because now it's considered toxic masculinity, or now it's considered non-gentle parenting, or now it's considered I can't even in public raise my voice towards my child, or I can't even disagree in public, because when now my entire career is taken from me, because however the angle on the camera was, it looked like I was being a little too aggressive.
New form of slavery.
Because the black man specifically is society fears that.
That's right.
So anytime we're not operating with the status quo, we got to do away with him.
I have a friend who talks about it in terms of the bee and the butterfly. When people see a butterfly, oh, look at the butterfly, and when they see a bee, they immediately start swatting
at it.
And the black man is the bee in the society. Whether you're talking President Obama or, Hootie and Tootie on the corner.
Right.
Who's just standing there talking because they were off today.
Right.
But immediately it's assumed that they're on the corner up to no good.
Right.
Society does see the black man, men of color, now y'all will be bypassed by the brown men really soon, because they're poisoning the blood of America and bringing in drugs and craziness.
That's what they say, right?
Okay, so it's going to be them in a minute, so y'all will be off the hook. But again, how many children you have will go viral? I've been teaching people how to balance their mind and their heart for 35 years. I ain't never went viral. It's a level of degradation. It's like we go for the base, the lowest common denominator that just feeds the deceptive intelligence of our mind to make us think that I'm going to jump on this bandwagon and tear you down, jump on that bandwagon. Like I said, 36 years I've been doing it. I ain't never went viral, ever, about nothing.
Right. Well, we're going to change that today.
How about healing ancestral patterns that I've been teaching? And again, this is not about me going viral. This is about how this society, how the matrix of this society, with its predisposition to demean, diminish, devalue black men, has really kind of, recruited everybody to get into this thing where swat the bee.
Yeah, I love that. I always called it the lion complex. If you saw a lion walking down the street, You gonna lock your doors. You gonna call the police.
No. First, you're gonna take a picture.
And then you gonna lock your door.
Right, then you're gonna lock your door. But you will be there trying to take a picture because there's something intriguing.
But we were taught to fear the lion because the lion got so much inside of him. But then, and we said this earlier, but nobody's ever checking on the lion.
That's right. Nobody.
No one ever asked how
Mr.
the
Lion,
do.
how are you doing?
Yeah.
How you feel, Mr. Lion?
They gonna tranquilize. They gonna shoot because they fear the lion.
But my son, who's a black man, said this to me one day. We have these really in-depth debates, of course, because his mother is Iyanla Vanzant. So we had this really in-depth debate, and he said to me, "Ma, the lion, the king of the jungle, who, he just talked about all of the attributes and how people look at the lion. He said, what is it, Ma, that would make an animal that majestic, that grand, that sought after? What would make him cower in a cage to a human with a whip in the chair? What would make that majestic beast so diminish himself that a human with a whip in a chair could make it?" I said, he lost the knowledge of himself.
He forgot he was a lion.
How many black men walking around today feeling inadequate simply don't have the knowledge of themselves, and they're so busy trying to live up to the standards that the Matrix has set for them without it ever having said how you doing, how you feel, what you need. And they're trying to conform to other people's expectations, definitions. No wonder.
That's powerful. Shall we pause there? I mean, this session in itself, we just began to unpack some powerful stuff. But Doc, I definitely feel, that this is gonna affect a lot of people. This is gonna help a lot of men and women, but just to be able to verbalize these things. And to hear it in a simplistic form. But even for me, as we continue on in the next couple of sessions, I definitely want to talk about everything that I like that we laid the analogy of lions on the table because I want to talk about fatherhood. I want to dig a little bit deeper into, suicide and when the lion no longer or feels that he has
a place
in the world,
value,
a
meaning.
When his roar is no longer heard.
Or when his roar, no one's afraid of his roar.
Yeah. And then finally, I think there's a lot that, for me, where I need help, and probably a few of my counterparts and peers in the space of entertainment, our responsibility. Everybody got a microphone in front of them now. There's a camera following us all around. I think we definitely got to discuss, the accountability of our black entertainers specifically. And, I coined the phrase, black men do better. And, you could take that how in many different ways, but it really starts with the accountability and understanding, like you said, who we are as kings, who we are as lions, who we are as in the society.
But also who you are as wounded little boys who didn't get what they needed from the people who were responsible to give it to them.
We're going to unpack all of that in the next session. We're going to pause here. Please like, follow, subscribe, comment section. Go crazy. Do what you do. This is just the beginning. This is just the appetizer. We're about to dig in deeper on the next session of Counsel Culture.